listening to the DFS On Deck podcast, brought to you by LineStar, the top-rated DFS tool set and #1 companion for DraftKings, FanDuel, and Yahoo Daily Fantasy. Go LineStar Premium now at LineStarApp.com. Now, here are your hosts, fantasy baseball experts Joe Pisapia and Chris Meaney.
Hey, yo, what's up, everybody? It's me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia, and welcome to On Deck right here on the LineStar app. It's me, it's Chris Meaney, and it's you, and it's Memorial Day weekend, a great weekend to remember all of our servicemen and women who have sacrificed so much for us here in the United States of America, so tip of the hat to all of them. And as you're enjoying this weekend, we want you to play a little DFS, have some fun. There's probably going to be some good barbecues, there's probably going to be some drinking, there's probably going to be some fireworks. And not just the fireworks you see in the sky, but I'm talking about some offensive fireworks, because in Colorado, baby, you got Andrew Cashner going this weekend, Chris, and that is going to lead to some big fireworks, I think.
Oh, my goodness. How many home runs is he going to give up? Like, if they just kept Baltimore's starters in games, like, they would set records. Like, they already are. I know they're the fastest team to allow 100 home runs just the other day, and then they followed that up with another 5 or 6 in the following game against the Yankees. So, yeah, Andrew Cashner in Colorado at Coors is a bad idea.
It is a bad idea for sure, but let's get at it and let's break them down one piece at a time. Let's start with the early games on Saturday. You got Kyle Gibson and the Twins hosting the White Sox, so obviously that Twins lineup will always be in play in the early slate. J-Hap's been terrible. He's facing Danny Duffy. I think you have a little contrarian love here for Danny Duffy personally. You got Yu Darvish and Tyler Mahle. That's Reds at Cubs in that one. Then you go to Toronto for Edwin Jackson hosting Cal Quantrill. Should be some offense in that bad boy as well. So those are the early games. So, Chris, I'm looking for sure, and I'm thinking we're going to see some offense in Toronto. I think we're going to definitely see some offense as well from the Twins. The question is, where do you go for pitching? Do you go with Kyle Gibson and just try to hope for a win there? Are you trying for a little oppo love with Danny Duffy, or are you trying to roll the dice with Yu Darvish, which is always a risky move?
Yeah, is it ever? Tyler Mahle's been really good this season, and then it's so tough to, roll him out with confidence in Chicago. But, a 9.4 K per nine and a 1.93 walks per nine. He keeps the ball relatively on the ground anyways, 44%. And he's had some really good showings this season. In particular, his latest one against the Dodgers, he had 6 scoreless and struck out 5. I think that may be the contrarian play, but I think if you're looking for cash and just looking to be safe, it's Kyle Gibson. He's been okay this year. Again, another guy who keeps the ball on the ground, striking out a career high 9.12 per nine. And we've always been talking to the White Sox. It's not the easiest lineup to get through. They have some guys, especially Eloy Jimenez, who is now starting to hit. He had a couple home runs. I believe he had one off Garrett Cole the other night. Very impressive stuff. But they strike out a ton. So, Gibson could maybe go 6-7 innings in this start, get 6 or 7 K and the W. That'd be nice. But, yeah, where do you go?
Well, I think we make a really good case for Mahle. And also, the Reds might be in last place and all, but I just saw a stat come across the wire, which I thought was fascinating, which was that the Reds are 4th best in team run differential. So that being said, there might be some better days coming ahead for the Cincinnati Reds. And Yu Darvish is one of those guys. You just never know what you're going to get. And I think that there's worth the risk there because there really isn't anything clean out there. Duffy, to me, I think has some opportunity with the back end of that Yankee lineup at home as a lefty on the mound there too. I think that's probably my second best one, but I think Mahle is actually a really good case. Now, when we get into the afternoon games, everything kind of changes here when we get to the 4 o'clocks and on, because then you got Corbin, Alcantara in Washington. You got Suarez and Clark. So, again, not a lot to like there with the pitchers, but eventually later on the slate, you get Carrasco against the Rays, and then you've got Vargas for the Mets. When we all know, we love to go against Vargas there. Chacin at home against Arrieta. So really, this is really a day in the 4 o'clock games too of a ton of offense. It's hard not to like Mets Tigers for some offense too, with Vargas on the mound with a 6 ERA, and it's still a to be determined for the Tigers. It's hard not to like the Phillies and Brewers, those two offenses with Chacin and Arrieta, who's been pretty hittable on the mound. So really, Charlie Morton looks like the 4 o'clock cash game guy, and the rest of it, I think you just kind of personally, you play it safe with Morton or Corbin. Morton's probably gonna be slightly cheaper than Corbin, so I think I would lean that way. Would you rather pay up for Corbin or go a little bit cheaper with Charlie Morton against Carrasco, who has the tougher matchup in terms of pitcher he's going against.
Yeah, he does, and he
You got,
also hasn't been
and
that good.
Alcantara pitched well last time, so I mean, I don't want to kind of dismiss him. He did pitch well against the Mets, but I don't know. Do you want the Corbin versus the Marlins?
It is tough to call, and he's going to be so expensive. I wonder if he is, because of the price, maybe we'll get him cheaper in tournaments, but he's definitely the safest. We know about Miami, and even Corbin has been pretty hit or miss, but the strikeout upside is there, and I agree. I'd lean Morton over Carlos Carrasco. It's just a better match. We talked about, heading into Friday night's game, Blake Snell and up against this Cleveland lineup, and it's just there's so many holes. They're striking at a time. They're not generating any offense, and Charlie Morton has been really good. Again, another year of just success from Morton. The strikeouts are there, keeps the ball on the ground, doesn't walk a lot of guys. Really, for the most part, he doesn't, and it keeps them out of trouble. So those are the two I would go to, and man, I can't even go elsewhere for value. Even against Detroit, you can't go Vargas. You mentioned Arrieta, just a contact guy in Milwaukee. Chacin giving up bombs. Oakland's the stack that I like. Again, heading into Friday, we were talking about them against a lefty. Very, very underpriced on FanDuel. Guys like Stephen Piscotty, Chad Pinder. These are guys that are basically free squares, and they have great splits. So I think you can afford to spend up on a Corbin and Morton and then just stack Oakland bats. And same thing with Arizona against another lefty in Suarez. Just those are the two best teams this year against lefties, and for Oakland, they're just not priced expensively.
All right, now you do get some intriguing pitchers on the evening slate on Saturday. You got Ryu against Musgrove. Musgrove's been much better. Ryu's been brilliant. It's hard not to favor Ryu, but I'll tell you what, if you want to be contrarian in a tournament, Musgrove's the way to go because he has been very good. The ownership's going to be super low. It is incredibly risky. I'm not going to say it's not, but I think you can make a case for it. And that's been – and I am not taking anything away from Ryu. Ryu has been absolutely brilliant. We've talked about it on the show over and over so glowingly. But, Chris, if you want to try to make some money in a tournament, you want to go contrarian, Musgrove might be the perfect kind of guy, especially when you also have Price and Soroka and some other big-time pitchers on this slate. And you're going to need some money left over for offense because we're going to want all the Rockies we can get against Mr. Cashner on Saturday night.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And we could play Ryu every single week if we wanted to. We sit here and talk about how good he's been and his command is on par, and another good matchup heading into PNC against Pittsburgh, who ranks near the bottom in every single offensive category. And if you took Bell out of their lineup, they'd be dead last everywhere across the board. But you're right about the strategy about just maybe fading Ryu in tournaments, and if he gets lit up, then you're not on him and you can afford some other bats. So I look at Mike Minor. We've been picking on the Angels against lefties heading into the weekend, the worst average in baseball against left-handed pitching. So I think Mike Minor is an option. Soroka was really good against St. Louis. He just didn't strike anybody out. And we've been talking about that all year. The Cardinals are just a really good offense. They take their walks. They don't have a lot of guys who swing and miss. So that's a risky one to me. I think maybe Musgrove, he also had a good start against the Dodgers earlier this year, Joe, in LA, where he only allowed the one run.
I think that Minor's going to be more expensive than people realize. I think that when you look at it, Soroka's going to be expensive too. And then you've got David Price. We know he's going to be in the double-digit K range. Even though it's against Houston, I still think he's going to be up there, somewhere around $10,000 probably on both sides. And that leaves us basically with Musgrove and the Colorado Rockies and probably the other side of that game too, maybe even a little Orioles as well. But to me, that's the way I'm going personally. If you want to play
before we move on,
yeah, sure.
You know what? I'm just looking at Skaggs. Maybe. Well, what do you think about? I know we like Minor, but maybe in contests where you don't go Minor and you go Musgrove, maybe you can go Skaggs. I mean,
or maybe you have to go both on a DK in order to get these bats because they're going to be so expensive. You might need both. That might be your tournament pitcher duo on Saturday night in order to get it done. Because I just don't think you can get Minor, Price, or Ryu and those bats. I just don't think it's going to work. You're going to want the Arenados and the Stories of the world. You're going to want all those guys. And I just think it's going to be really close to impossible to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about the Rangers good against righties. That's why I was hesitant against Canning. Now, with Skaggs, 28% strikeout rate for the Rangers is the third highest in baseball against left-handed pitchers. The WOBA, the average, it all ranks near the bottom 10 for them just because they have so many lefties in their lineup. So if they come out with a heavy lineup, you're playing the late slate, and they come up with a heavy left-handed lineup again, and I imagine they will. It's hard to avoid. I think Skaggs can be a sneaky GPP second option.
Yeah, I totally get behind that. I'm with you there as well. I think that's another one too. I think sometimes when you look at a board and you see how much chalk, I think we've all learned this year too. It's good to have a little bit of strange, especially if you're playing tournaments. That's how you're going to put yourself ahead. And it's very difficult because when you see Ryu, you see locked in production, you see guys like Price. It's very difficult to fade away from those guys because you're saying, oh, that's all the points. But I'll tell you what, when you're the other offense that I'm going to really like in this evening slate is going to be Boston against Peacock. I really think that there's a lot of opportunity there for them in Houston to put up some runs there. So for me, it's Musgrove. I'm with you on Skaggs. And if you're not going to go all in, as we are, we're going all in, I think, on that Colorado game with Cashner, then I think it's Boston as the second.
And that's the perfect way to go to be able to do Red Sox and Colorado. And then just continuing here with Skaggs and just looking here on the fly. So like last year, 5 innings, 7K, 0 runs. That was one start he had against him, and another one, 6K, 6K over 6 innings, and all scoreless. And then this year he also faced Texas 6 1/3 and only gave up the 1 run. So that's 3 outings where he's won at least 6 and he's only given up 2 runs. So that just proves that, Texas for a long time now have struggled against lefties.
All right, so let's move our attention over to Sunday, where we got Chris Paddack going against the Toronto Blue Jays. We talked on Friday about the Blue Jays with all the young talent cycling through there, and it's a lot of inexperience. Now, Stroman's pitched well. He's got a 2.8 ERA, but he's also got 6 losses because an offense just isn't showing up for him. And Chris Paddack has showed us he is worth the money. So he is worth every penny. He got a 1.93 ERA. I don't care if it's American League. I don't care if it's Rogers. I don't care anything about that. All I care is Chris Paddack on the mound. It's he's money in the bank. And that's perfectly fine by me. So all in on him on cash games. You got Zach Wheeler on this slate as well. And then looking at the other 1 o'clock games too, Kenta Maeda and Archer are going to square off against each other. Odorizzi's involved in this one as well. And then you got Verlander against Erod, who Verlander was absolutely brilliant last time out. Woodruff, another guy too. We'll get to him. So there's a lot of early games here before we get to the 3 o'clock. 4 o'clock slate here. You've also got Jose Quintana on this board. So let's start at the top. Let's start with Verlander and work our way down. Against the Red Sox, how do you see this working out in terms of ownership? He's going to be pricey regardless. Do you fade him because of who he's going against, or is this an opportunity where maybe you get Verlander a couple $100 cheaper than normal and you take it and you hopefully, just your easy single cash game pitcher?
Yeah, and I don't know if I'd play him in cash. Like, I love Paddack. You said everything, and you were just getting me excited when you were just rattling off some of his numbers.
And also Caleb Smith is on this one, too, against the Nationals, which is another this road, we've hit this grouping a couple times in the last few weeks because they've been on that 5-day schedule consistently. Hasn't been a whole lot of missed games for these guys. So I feel like this is the cluster that we keep coming back to with this group of pitchers, and it's a tough one when all these guys are out there.
Oh, it is for sure. Absolutely. So I think, you're right on Verlander, probably going to get him a little bit with the lower ownership and maybe more of a discount than we're used to seeing. So I think he could be a tournament option if you want. I feel the safest with Paddack, the strongest. There's just so many numbers backing him up. And you're right, I don't care about the AL and pitching in Toronto. It's a lot of kids in that lineup and, a lot of free swingers. So I think that's the play. And, I have no problem going to Caleb Smith against Washington. You know this. I mean, he's already had success against Washington this year, and I'm not crazy about the Nationals bats. So the 2 tournament options that you could get, maybe Smith and Verlander, Paddack is my cash game, and I feel pretty strong about Wheeler as well. Just a good matchup against Detroit. We talked about this before. He's faced Washington 4 times this year, and he's just had really bad outings against, the Nationals 4 times, actually, all 4. Right. Other than that, he's shown us that, a little bit of the Wheeler of last season. So that's the way I would go. And it's really tough. I mean, even Kenta Maeda is a decent option in Pittsburgh as a sneaky one if he comes in cheap. But usually those Dodgers pitchers are just chalky to begin with, and he'll probably be pretty expensive.
Well, the Rockies and Orioles are at 3 o'clock. So it depends on how you're going to approach this slate and how you want to break it up. If you want to just play the 1 o'clock only, if you want to go all day, however you want to figure that out. But if you want to get involved again in this Rockies and Orioles game, which I think I do, it's Hess on the mound there for Orioles in this one. I think that Odorizzi has a ton of appeal, and so does Brandon Woodruff. Woodruff has pitched really well this year. I know the Phillies have been better, but I'll put my money where Woodruff is. He's 6-1 with a 3.51 ERA. He's been very solid, and I think he can come away with a W in this one. So for me, it's Woodruff and it's Odorizzi. Those are 2 guys at home I really prefer, and I'm going to fade the rest of the pack of the top quote-unquote arms in this one because, again, I just don't think I can. I don't think I can afford to go to Herman. I don't think I can afford to go to Verlander and get the exposure if I'm playing an all-day slate to the Colorado scene.
No, you're absolutely right. And Odorizzi is probably the value play on this board. We don't know pricing for Sunday, but looking at all these high price pitchers or all the talent atop the board, I think, if you get into that, I believe he'd probably be in the 8K range on DK. You get into that range, and that will allow you to get some Colorado bats in here, because you're going to want to against David Hess, a fly ball pitcher. You're going to want to get some Cubs against Tanner Roark, a fly ball pitcher, into Chicago. So you're going to want to have exposure to those two offenses. And even Milwaukee, if, of course, Yelich comes back and he plays against Eflin, he's another contact guy. So, yeah, that's the way I would go. And also Oakland. I mean, Oakland is kind of the theme of the show here. They've been the theme of the show since Matt Olson came back in that lineup, Joe. And Mike Leake has struggled all year with command, and with his contact rate for his career is north of 80%. So you're going to have to spend down somewhere. And, yeah, Jake Odorizzi, I think, is probably one of my favorites on the board, actually. Now that I'm looking from a full slate, I think I'll have a lot of exposure to him.
And if you want, you could also kind of isolate the later games. And what you can do there is you can go with you could play straight up on FanDuel Luke Weaver against the Giants. You could do straight ahead there. You can go with the Ranger stack and Luke Weaver, or you can sprinkle in some of the Diamondbacks in there as well. You can go with those A's bats, also been moderately priced. You could figure out a way combination-wise to do that. You got the Cardinals game at night with Flaherty and Teheran, but really, if you're doing 4 o'clock only, I think that is a very appealing site where opportunity, I should say, where you can go with Weaver on the single pitcher site, and there's plenty of offense to just play some cash games and, kind of just change it up over the weekend too. To me, the Wiz is really looking like a weekend of isolating early versus late, the 1s versus the 4 o'clocks, or just kind of the afternoon slate versus the evening slate. Because I think that if you try to have too much exposure everywhere, I just think there's going to be so much variance with so many big pitchers and so many big offensive potential games where you got Milwaukee and Colorado in the same weekend, Chris. Can add to some huge pay lines. So I want to parse it out a little bit. I want to take some of that variance out of it and just try to focus it a little bit more and try to focus the stacks I like and see if I can get as many other things away from changing my thought process on that, so I don't have to worry about all those different variances with all the ballparks that we have and all some of the bad pitchers we have on this slate as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I've just noticed and what we've been talking about for the past week is just there's affordable stacks on FanDuel. The Mets are a cheap one in Detroit, or playing against Detroit, and that bullpen has been one of the worst ones in baseball. The Dodgers have been, despite being the Dodgers, like on DK, they're pricey, but guys like Seager and Turner, they're cheap on FanDuel, and the same applies for some of these Oakland bats again. So I think that's a good call by you, Luke Weaver, if you're playing in that 4. I think even if you're playing just a full slate, I think Luke Weaver will get overlooked, and it's a pretty good matchup for him against rookie John Anderson, and these bats in Arizona could maybe just give him some run support. So it is a very interesting slate, especially when you get some
Kevin Cronin in those games too. I would imagine at least some at some point over the weekend, in which case he's going to be. I know one of those cheap guys. We keep talking about how when the FanDuel rookies come up this weekend, whether it's Biggio or Crone or whoever else, there's going to be some, very slow the uptake on the FanDuel side compared to the DraftKings side in terms of price.
Oh, yeah. And, Austin Riley's price hasn't – he's basically scored a run in every single game. He's got a hit through his first –
Yeah, and he's still mid-threes on FanDuel.
Yeah, it hasn't even changed, right? So, yeah, it's going to be that way for a bit, and it's going to be an opportunity, for you guys to jump on some cheap bats. So, interesting slate. I think, Paddock is the way I would go for cash, Luke Weaver, and then I would take some shots on – if you're playing multiple tournaments, I think you can – it's just an opportunity. Hey, I'll go Justin Verlander, because we know Verlander can pitch a gem against the Red Sox. Like, he can overmatch like that. And
I'll always take the better pitcher, for sure. And I don't have any Oppo love for Erod. Erod is right now dead until he figures it out.
Absolutely
done. Very frustrating. I tried to give him a benefit of the doubt because the kid's got talent, but and watch, he'll go out there and he'll spin 7 scoreless innings and he'll match Verlander. That's the way things are going this year sometimes. But I think I'm going to stick with Odorizzi, and I'm going to stick with.
Odorizzi is a good call.
Yeah, I really like him and Woodruff too, because I know some people will be on Eflin, but I think Woodruff's really comfortable in that ballpark. He's been really good this year, just underrated pitcher. So I think that's certainly – and a guy who strikes guys out too. He's got decent strikeout rate also. So that's something you want to keep in mind. All right. So this weekend, from a betting standpoint, you look at some of the overs, even with Andrew Casher in Colorado. What else kind of piques your
Yeah.
What would I have to put the number for you not to take the over with Andrew Kashner on Saturday?
14. I don't know.
Like that, right?
Even then, yeah, they're going to have a team applied total. It's probably like 7.5. But I mean, it's a good bet against Andrew Kashner. I'm just going to stick with some trends. I'm going to like the Dodgers all weekend on the road in Pittsburgh. I think there's going to be a little bit of value there, and the same thing with Oakland at home and Arizona on the road. I think those are the strong plays. Some safer ones. If you want to take, obviously the Twins are going to be in play every single time they take the field, especially against fly ball pitchers and contact guys like Lopez and whatnot. So that's where I would go. And then maybe the Padres. I think we can feel good about the Padres on Sunday with Paddock on the hill.
Yeah, I like that as well. All right, it's time to call our shot for the weekend, and I don't care. I'm going to be chalky. I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go with Trevor Story over the weekend going yard on Saturday or Sunday or both. I don't know. All I know is that there's no way we're hitting the holiday without a Trevor Story home run this weekend. How about you there, Chris? Where are you going?
I'm going to go with Matt Olson. I think despite this game being in Oakland and that spacious ballpark, two good matchups with Kikuchi and Leak, I think we'll see Matt Olson go yard this weekend.
All right, there you have it. Make sure you are following us on the Twitter machine at Joe Pisapia17 and as well at LineStar App and Chris Meaney and LineStar MLB. If you haven't already, please listen. If you listen to the show, subscribe, rate, and review us. We love to have those 5-star reviews pop up, and make sure you're downloading the LineStar app and utilizing all the tools and lineup optimizer to make your lineup as successful as it can be. You're going to need the help this weekend. It's very tricky out there. I think the one big takeaway, Chris, is about isolating these games a little bit in terms of the slates, trying not to get overexposed to the entire slate as a whole on Saturday or Sunday, because there's a lot of potential points on the board. There's going to be a lot of fireworks, a lot of things going on, and I think that you're better off kind of playing it safer and kind of just streamlining things a little bit rather than just going all day and kind of going through it, because I think there's just going to be way too many crazy things that are going to go on that you're going to be unhappy about, and it's going to ruin your pay line possibilities. You don't want that to happen, especially on a holiday, right, Chris?
Oh, exactly, especially on a holiday. And, we've been talking a lot about cash, especially on weekends. Don't be afraid maybe to shy away from some of the tournament lineups if you want to. I know there's a lot of big tournament players out there, but keep an eye on lineups for Saturday, especially Sunday. You typically see some stars rest and some lineups get jugged around.
Well,
it does create some
Monday
value.
Holiday, because you get a lot of Monday day games coming up on Memorial Day too.
So keep an eye on that LineStar app. They're really good with just spitting out the lineups and some of the value, and you'll see the totals move constantly. So it's always up to date and live. Yeah, on Monday on Memorial Day, I'm just trying to look at it now in terms of Chris was talking about it too, how that really affects things. You're going to have it looks like 8 or 9 1 o'clock games. It's going to be it's an early slate, that's for sure, on Monday. So you only got a couple night games, really, half a dozen really on the evening, but this is indicative of what's going on out there. But don't worry, we'll be here for you to break it all down, as we always are on the LineStar app. So that'll do it for us. And there's only one thing left to do, and that's step out of the on-deck circle and into the batter's box and go yard. We'll see you next time, kids.
You've been listening to the DFS On Deck podcast, brought to you by LineStar. Hit subscribe, tell a friend, and stay tuned for the next episode from fantasy baseball experts Joe Pisapia and Chris Meaney.